made multiple keys and then went for a drive and drop off those keys to all your friends? Guys, that is so damning.
Hi, I'm Tova Walsh. I'm an assistant professor of social work at University of Wisconsin-Madison. I teach courses on social work interventions with children, youth, and families, on family violence, and on social work practice with service members, veterans, and their families.
That is Tova Walsh. That is Wendi Adelson's very best friend. Who is she? Well, she is an associate professor at Sandra Rosenbaum School of Social Work, University of Wisconsin-Madison. She's got a PhD in social work and psychology. She went to University of Michigan, and she graduated Brandeis in 2001, which is what I have here, that Wendy also graduated from Brandeis in 2001. So that is obviously how they met. But the interesting thing about Tova Walsh is her research focus, what she specializes in. And I'm going to go into that in just about a minute here. But guys, Tova spoke out for Wendy back in 2017 during the 2020 special on the Dan Markel murder. And she talks about the fact that there is no way her family is involved. And she was so sure of this that she, came forward and spoke in the interview. Now, back then, things weren't as heated as it is today. I mean, nowadays, I think all these friends are running for cover that she has, whether they're old friends, former friends, or current friends still, no one is talking. And that seems to be the biggest thing. Now, you all know I put out a video recently on the Wendy's lunch date with Janine Silberman and Ritu Guy. They haven't spoken. Nobody's spoken. Jane McPherson is not talking. Why? Why aren't they talking? It's either they are still friends with her and still believe in her innocence, which is, I find it really hard to believe, because Sarah Youssef did recently come out and finally have a change of heart and is starting to realize that Wendy might not be so innocent here. So are the others thinking this way? But here's the other thing. I kind of wouldn't blame any of them for not wanting to come forward, because let's face it, YouTube is screaming Wendi Adelson stuff all over the place. I mean, I'm part of that. And they're probably really scared to be in the public eye. And sometimes when I stop and think about that, it makes me feel terrible as a person, because I'm doing it too, right? We're all trying to figure out what happened to Dan Markel. We all think we know what happened, but there's some missing pieces. We're all still trying to figure out some little things that we're not sure about. But we are all doing this for one purpose, which is to get the justice for Ruth and Phil Markel that they so deserve, right? But at the same time, there's all these players to look into, and what if, some don't deserve to be, put out there. But for Tova Walsh, I kind of feel bad for her. I really do. And you'll see why, but let's take a listen right here.
Wendy, what is she like?
Wendy is an incredibly bright, incredibly intelligent individual.
While Wendi Adelson was a serious and committed law student, her best friend, Tova Walsh, says she was more free-spirited and quirky than her straight-laced boyfriend.
Welcome to The Weakest Link.
Wendy.
Once appearing on that old quiz show, The Weakest Link.
When I was little, I wanted to be a giraffe.
Is there anything else you've ever dreamed of?
Well, I was in the circus for a while as a contortionist.
Wendy is just, fun and full of joy. She's a lovely person who has just boundless enthusiasm and energy and sense of humor. It was a beautiful and very elegant affair. Wendy looked gorgeous. Dan's friends and Wendy's friends were all there and celebrating with them.
Had Wendy ever even hinted that she suspected one of the family members?
No, I mean, she's never indicated to me any, suspicion that her family members were connected.
Tova Walsh is Wendy's best friend.
And, she, like you, like me, sees the coincidence and is horrified by it, but is not, it's something that she can't imagine could be the case.
Okay, so in that clip, you can hear that she is, fully supportive of Wendi Adelson, but it is several years back. We're not living in today's day, you know what I mean? Where now Donna and Charlie have been convicted. We know about Hitman and Katie McBanoa, they're all in jail. And I would imagine they're all had it up to here, right? And I think secretly they must be second guessing Wendy's involvement at this point. It's just really sad all around. But I still want to say that if any of the friends are watching right now, that, I'm imploring you, please just, if you know something, even if it's like the slightest, smallest little thing, a comment that was made, and then it can help in some way to get the justice that is fully needed to complete this for Ruth and Phil, then please come forward and do that. But why is she being so quiet? We don't know. She could still be her best friend and they're secretly talking. It could be that she just doesn't want to be involved, and I kind of understand that. And it also could be because maybe she has come forward and spoken to the prosecution, and that is being held under wraps in case there is an indictment. So I just ask that everybody just have a little grace for the fact that maybe we don't know everything. But the rest is all speculation. So here we go with this next clip. You're going to be very surprised.
Some highlights from some of the research that I do, and kind of orienting you to some of the research that I do that focuses on separations and reunions of parents and their young children, and talking about how I see that as relevant to the experiences of families separated at the border. And then move from there into thinking about, into talking about ways that I've sought to use my research and use the expertise that I have as a scholar to support organizations working with migrant children and families. And it's really a story about kind of partnerships and connecting and working with organizations around the country who have been addressing these issues for a very long time. So I want to start by saying that I'm not an immigration scholar, and so I've been on a steep learning curve. So part of what you'll hear from me is about how I've kind of been working to bring myself up to speed and to kind of learn from and work with organizations who have deeper and long historical understanding of these issues. And then I'm grateful for the support that I've received for my learning. But also want to kind of share with you just how incredibly open people have been to partnering, and just some of the ways in which, once I started taking one step at a time, kind of how things have snowballed, and how there's just a lot of opportunity for all of us to be using our research skills to have an impact and to be partnering with organizations that are often very receptive and appreciative of that kind of outreach. So I want to tell you a little bit about that.
I want to say that I think she comes across like a really, really sweet girl. And I think she kind of got duped. I think she's one of the many victims of Wendi Adelson. I think that Wendy targeted psychiatrists, lawyers, and social workers as her friends. And there is a psychology to that, right? Having that kind of tribe of people around you is good to arm yourself with in this particular scenario of Wendy getting caught up with her family on getting rid of her husband, Dan Markel. So the joke is on all of them. It's on all of the friends, right? Tova Walsh is a social worker that specializes in the absence of a father. And just listen to this. This is she's just her giving a presentation on how it affects the children when a father is not around. Listen to this.
Because everything about it was so overwhelming, and in her household, she really carried the bulk of the responsibilities for childcare, for managing her children's days, from the smallest details up to the kind of biggest social and emotional problems that the children might be struggling with, and she just couldn't imagine how that would be covered or who would fill those gaps when she was gone. So then deployment is a period of time that has a number of impacts on parents and children. And so in our interviews, parents describe a range of impacts on the children and then on themselves. And so for young children, parents talk about the difficulty that children have kind of understanding and making sense of their parents' absence. So with older children, you can kind of be clearer about timelines, and they might have a sense of what that means. But with young children, it's really hard to understand what's happening and why this separation is happening and how long it's going to last. Young children have difficulty often with adjusting to new care arrangements.
I'm going to stop right there, because she is there to provide her expertise to Wendy if Wendy is now going to be a single parent, which ultimately is what ends up happening here. But it's just the irony, and the rug has been pulled out from underneath this girl, and I don't even think she realizes that. And if she has, she's been super quiet about it. But here she is talking about, and in this particular conversation that she's having at this conference, it's about a deployment, about the man being gone from the home. But she talks about other scenarios besides a man being deployed in the services and what that does to children. But, hey, Wendy, why didn't you take your own friend's advice. I mean, this is what she specializes in, right? And I'm sure she heard about it because these ladies were, together all the time. As we know, they frequently probably went to lunch together. And these are discussions amongst professionals, And it's just weird to me that her very best friend specializes in the very thing that Wendy ultimately ends up doing to her own self and her own children. Okay, this next one I'll blow through because I just did a video on them. They are the two women that went to lunch with Wendy on the 18th, the day of Dan Markel's murder. Ritu Guy and Janine Silberman. Two friends, both doctors, both with psychiatry degrees. Again, two women with the study of the mind, right? It's just so interesting. Sociology people, social work, psychology, psychiatry, and then lawyers. So it's just what a clan, right? Anyway, they went to lunch with Wendy, but the big thing for Janine the other day, if you did not watch my other video, is that when Wendy first of all, the two women, when Wendy showed up at the lunch, she had come straight from going to the crime scene, straight from ABC Liquors. She was also on the phone with Jeff Skopek. We're going to talk about him next. And when she gets there, you would think that she would have told these women, hey, I tried to take a shortcut down Trescott and I stumbled on some crime scene tape, or if she wants to say yellow tape, I saw police everywhere. She doesn't mention that. I mean, we women, we talk. We talk, right? We show up. Oh, hey, just had my hair done, just stopped by so-and-so's house, just went down the street, I took a shortcut. I mean, why wasn't that mentioned? We women talk. That is a topic of conversation. You can't stand your ex-husband. Everybody knows that you can't stand your ex-husband. And these women were very much aware of Dan Markel and what was going on. So why is it that when you get there at lunch, you don't say anything at all about the fact that you just tried to drive down the street and there was tape up? That's because there's something sinister going on here. Because, ladies, right? We would have said something. Now, I'm going to move on to the next, but I'm going to go back to Janine because there's something I didn't tell you about Janine and it's coming later, so hang out. On the morning of July 18th, 2014, the day of the murder, Wendy claimed she was on a long phone call with her old friend, Jeff Skopek, in England. Okay? In her police interview, Wendy explained that while she was driving late that morning, she ended up near Dan Street by accident because she was distracted on a phone call with her friend from law school. Now, here is a discrepancy, right? Because she's always said she purposely went and took the shortcut. In this account, she is saying that she ended up by accident because she was distracted, and that's how she ended up down that street. Okay, she doesn't talk about that when she's on the stand, which is very, very interesting. She said she had taken an unusual route down Trescott where Danny lived and en route to a proposed errand, that's to get the liquor, and she sees police activity there before knowing what happened. Okay, so Wendy's implication was that chatting with her friend kept her preoccupied. So she didn't even notice the crime scene until later. So investigators, they do confirm that Wendy had international calls at that time. Now, he has a Boston phone number, but at the time he was in England. Now, according to case chatter, that goes around, I don't know, the rumor, they have records verifying this call. And I had gotten a copy of one of the call logs, and it does show his number on there. Okay. And that he was in the UK at that time and on that exact morning. So at one point, though, she apparently identified her friend as Joe. Maybe she was trying to cover because she didn't want to get Jeff Skopek involved in this whole thing. But eventually it is concluded that it is Jeff Skopek, who by 2014 was living and teaching law in England. So on the witness stand in 2019, though, Wendy again referenced being on the phone with a friend from Cambridge when she almost drove by the crime scene. And she, again, I'm going to say, she said, I almost drove by the crime scene because in that particular trial testimony, she said she couldn't turn down Trescott. Well, we know that's a lie. So you didn't almost drive by there, Wendy. You actually drove down there, right where the last speed bump is, where those police cars were, where the tape was, and Danny Markel's house was right there, straight ahead. The garbage can and the mailbox and everything is all there. So there's that. So anyway, this detail is like meant to, bolster her claim that the timing and route were coincidental. Okay. But she would not use Jeff's name publicly. But eventually police had concluded that it was Jeff Skopek, and the call logs eventually do prove that it is Jeff Skopek. So that is who Jeff Skopek is, everybody. He is a friend. He is, high academia. If there's anything that they have on him, they're keeping it close to their chest. I have no doubt in my mind that everybody I mention in this video has been spoken to by prosecution. Please don't assume that they haven't. I'm assuming that they have. I'm sure that they have literally looked under every rock on this case. So hopefully we will hear more about Jeff Skopek if there's an indictment of Wendi Adelson. All right, guys. So amongst this list of friends are going to be a few people that dated Wendi Adelson too. So maybe I should have, emphasized that. But there are many men out there. I should have done a part 2 to the Wendi Adelson and her men thing, because I can't believe how many men I've uncovered here. So there's Miguel Edmondson. And some people, I've heard his name around a little bit, but here's the thing with Miguel. I can't find a picture of him anywhere, and I didn't want to just put up some picture of a guy named Miguel Edmondson, which is like a very common name. If anyone knows and can confirm a valid picture of Miguel Edmondson, please go ahead, message me, momsforjusticenow@gmail.com, and I will answer you back. But I cannot find a picture of him. But what I do know about him is that after Wendy and Dan were actually friends with this Miguel for a short time, and then I had heard that he actually stayed at the Trescott house with them, which is crazy, because once she gets separated from Dan Markel, she goes on to date Miguel as one of several men that she's dating. And even after their separation, when they were going through the divorce, she was dating Miguel at that time, and she lied during a deposition saying that she wasn't dating anybody. Because she said that she thought it would hurt her chances with custody or whatever it may be. And then I'm sure the other reason would be is because Dan knew Miguel, and he would find out probably that they were having an affair. That's what I think. So anyway, Jeff does talk about Miguel quite a bit. So I pulled out all the parts where he's talking about Miguel. Take a listen and we'll talk about it.
I mean, he doesn't seem like a suspect to me, but I'm just thinking, if you want to know men that Wendy has spent time with that suspect there's some romantic connection, maybe a paranoid boyfriend, maybe not, I don't know, but stayed with her for a week, or stayed in Miami for a week across Christmas break, and she saw him at a conference together in March. It seems very unlikely to me. Miguel, I don't know if you know the name Miguel, her ex-boyfriend. Again, all these people are like, they're not thugs, so it'd be pretty strange, but I don't know Miguel's last name. He's like a corporate guy at Exxon, I think. He hates Danny, but so did everybody. So, you could verify on her phone the text messages from Miguel saying, screw that guy, I hate that guy,
Where'd you say it works?
I think Exxon. He's in D.C.
She up to D.C. a lot?
No, he just moved there. She broke up. Yeah. No, she doesn't go to D.C. a lot. But she dated him until like June. And he was in New Orleans for the year previous, so she went up to New Orleans a lot. So.
Were you dating her in March?
Now, this is June of 2013, they broke up.
June of 2013.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So like June 2013, her and Miguel, which she kept. This is why, when you talk about the men thing, I don't think you can ask Wendy who you see and expect a straight answer. I don't think you can. I think there's an investigation required, because
she's a cheater.
I mean, between you and I, she got asked a deposition about Miguel, divorce deposition. Like, are you seeing anybody? They're negotiating custody. She just lied at deposition. Nobody knew about it. So she just said, no, I'm not seeing anyone. She was seeing Miguel for a year.
When was this deposition?
I don't know.
How do you know she lied about it?
She told me she did. That was hearsay, but she was not, didn't seem to even blink an eye. I said, how did you handle that issue in custody? Because you're seeing Miguel, you're negotiating custody, and it's that thing, right? And she said, oh, nobody knew about Miguel, so I said I didn't have a boyfriend. She did. So I'm sure that deposition's available to you. And when we started having the fight about Daniel Sack, she wiped her phone of every message about Sack. That's nothing to do with this, I don't think. So if I snooped, I wouldn't find anything.
Right.
But given the pattern of behavior, I just wouldn't be shocked if there's a guy in South Florida. There's another guy I don't even know about in town. I just wouldn't blow my mind, I mean,
yeah, there's a guy in New Orleans There's guys in Miami. There was guys in Tallahassee. There were guys all over the place that she was dating. And, at one point, Jeff even says that he thinks there was like 9 guys at one time that she was, talking to. So there is a Miguel Edmondson that works at Exxon on LinkedIn. And guess where he's located? In Texas. Now, on July 18th, on the day that this murder happens, there's all these phone calls, right? There's all these phone calls that she makes. There's texts and calls. There is on that call log a call to Mehul Patel. This is Mehul Patel, and this is a friend of Wendy's. In fact, she's gone way back with him. And the thing is, he also won the Coca-Cola scholarship back in, let's see what the date is here. Actually, 1994 winner of the Coca-Cola scholarship. Now, we all know that Wendy also won the Coca-Cola scholarship as well. So this man is interesting because Jeff Lacasse talks about this man as being somebody, one of her extracurricular boyfriends. It's amazing when you put it all together. It really is. Check it out.
Here's a few names for you. Mehul Patel. Mehul. Patel. He's like a millionaire that runs a nonprofit. It would seem bizarre. But Wendy spent a week with him at Christmas time.
Is he here in town?
No, he's in New York City. It seems like a far-flung idea, but if you want to know who the men that love Wendy are, there's one. Wendy's also got a big mouth and tells me when men worship her, so I got a pretty good list here.
This isn't going to be like a list of 500 guys. I mean,
Just Miguel.
I mean, we're looking for viable leads. I mean, obviously, we pulled you in here today because of your relationship with her.
Sure.
But I mean, let me ask you this before I get a laundry list of guys.
Yeah, it's only 3 or 4 actually, but go ahead.
Have you ever met the victim?
Yeah, sure.
Did you know him?
I spent 20 hours with Danny over a 9-month period in various children's functions.
So why was Wendy calling Mehul Patel on the day of the murder? It's getting like actually since Donna's trial and all the new stuff that has come out, it's actually getting more confusing. There is more twists and turns the more you dive into this because this guy is somebody that Jeff said that they have, had a relationship. And of course, men that have a lot of money, right? Why was she calling him that day? Well, I have a theory because like I said, I think she had rallied around people at this very time, right around July 18th of 2014. She needed everybody around her that had money, power, knowledge of psychology, psychiatry. And then wait when you hear about my next friend, because you will probably be shocked. Guys, let me introduce you to Renae Griggs. Okay? Renae Griggs. Renae Griggs, National Police Family Violence Prevention Initiative. In this particular ad, it states, a decorated veteran of law enforcement, Renae Griggs is seeking to shift the culture of policing in a more humane direction for the nation's 800,000 officers. She aims to remove the barriers that yada, yada, yada. You can read on if you want, but it does get more interesting. Okay, so this is her now. Wendy spoke on the phone with her the day of Dan's murder. So this is the one that I want you all to hear about. And to me, I think it's a bombshell. So we know the motion for denial for relocation was denied with prejudice, right? Which means indefinitely. Wendy did go on to say, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the only way she would be able to move to Miami now is if Dan was dead. But was she in the process of trying to find an alternative way to the death, like another way, instead of having him killed? Was there anything else maybe she could do? So I thought about this today. If you cry abuse in any way, and let's say you can lie and successfully get a restraining order, could someone then be able to relocate down to Miami? No, hang on here. I'm going someplace with this. So this woman is Renae Griggs. She, again, was listed on the call log, but also on the email of the motion that was denied for relocation, it was forwarded to many people by Wendi Adelson. She forwarded it to a whole list of people. And Renae Griggs is one of the people she forwarded the denied motion to. So why would she forward this to Renae Griggs? Well, she's a police domestic violence activist and an investigator. She grew up always wanting to be a police detective, and I quote from Renae Griggs, she says, "I always wanted to be the good guy," says Renae. She graduated in the top percentile of her high school class, entered the law enforcement area at 21 years old, and served 13 years as police detective. She was the first female member of the Special Entry Team and the second woman in the history of the country to become a certified SWAT officer. As a major crimes detective on call 24 hours a day, she created a new domestic violence tracking system. Domestic violence. She also went on to train officers in how to professionally handle cases involving sex crimes and child abuse, and promoted innovative new approaches across the region to respond effectively to the needs of victims. Despite her successes in creating some change within the system, the stresses and emotional burden of policing eventually caught up with Renae. Quote, she says, "You see all of this awful stuff, murdered babies, bloody beaten wives, and eventually it gets to you," end quote. Then she says, "As a cop, you have nowhere to put it. You're supposed to be RoboCop, so you stuff it all into a black hole, and eventually it comes out in other ways." So like many officers before her, Renae reached the brink of suicide, putting a gun in her mouth with a finger on the trigger before seeing another way. I kid you not, people. This is out there. You can find it. So, in 2005, she was the founder of the National Police Family Violence Prevention Project. Thankfully, she did not, hurt herself. And she's currently directing a multifaceted pilot program designed to help officers of the Hollywood, Florida Police Department. Okay, so is Wendy or was Wendy utilizing this woman in some way? As an investigator, as a police officer, and as somebody that deals in domestic violence to maybe find dirt on Dan Markel? It's just something to think about. I'm not trying to, ruffle feathers here, but the truth is, this is just really odd. She called this woman on the day of the murder. It's on the call log. And then when the motion was denied, she just had to forward the email to Donna Adelson and a bunch of other people too. I'm going to read to you who she forwarded the email to so you could see where I'm going with this. March 14th, 2024, Tallahassee, Florida. Wendi Adelson emails a motion against Donna Adelson to 12 people shortly before he is killed. She sent it to, forwarded to, Donna Adelson, Jeffrey Lacasse, Renae Griggs, Tova Walsh, Morgan Honeycutt, Gary Cohen, Miguel Edmondson, Trey Hubler, Robert Adelson, Rachel Frank, Jared Reich, Mehul Patel. Guys, I don't know about you, but this isn't over yet. This is evidence. This is, if you put it together, it is circumstantial evidence, but it's there. And I hope George is watching. So, Tamara Demco. Tamara Demco, we've all heard about her. She's a mutual friend of Dan and Wendi Adelson. And on July 19th, 2014, the day very after Danny was shot, Tamara gave a recorded police interview that is going around. I know Deep Dive True Crime has it out there. A couple other channels have covered it as well. But she gave a recorded interview expressing deep suspicions about the Adelsons family and their demeanor. And she described Dan and Wendy's divorce as probably the nastiest divorce she had ever seen, and noted, "I know Wendi felt trapped in Tallahassee." But Tamara also recounts that she rushes to Wendy's house upon hearing about Dan getting shot. She goes there to try to, help, console Wendi, to see if there's anything that's needed by the family. And she said that when Wendy answered the door, she was like really calm and collected. It was not like somebody who just lost their husband, right? So, anyway, she goes inside and she sees the mother, Donna Adelson, appropriately upset, is what she quoted. But she remarked about Wendy's father, Harvey, and saying how he gave her a look that really bothered her. And like she had met him before. She said she had met Harvey before. And the look that she had given Harvey was just so chilling for her. It really bothered her. But then she mentions Janine Silberman. Okay, take a listen to this.
But I got a vibe from him, like, I know you suspect me, and I'm done. I don't know.
You said that woman that was over there was Janine?
Janine? Mm-hmm.
You know your last name or anything?
Nope. Supposedly she was with Wendy when Wendy was being interrogated. Or at the police station with Wendy at the time she was being questioned.
Okay.
And then Janine's husband. But she was protective in a way that felt a little overprotective.
That was the first time you met her?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so is it Janine or Jane McPherson? Because Jane McPherson was the one that was with her at the police station, but a lot of people have since said that it is Janine Silberman that was at the house.
Afternoon, and I drove straight to Wendy's. At that point, I couldn't help myself. I'm like, I have noon, and I drove straight to Wendy's. And when I got there, it didn't make me feel better. And I hate saying it, but I do, because I feel disloyal somehow. But I got there, she had her friend Janine, who I hadn't really heard about before, and Janine's husband, I guess. I can't remember his name. Something short and interesting. But she opened the door and she looked fairly calm. And she hugged me. I didn't say a word. And she just said, "I'm so sorry," to me, because she knows how close we were. And then it was odd because it felt like Janine was playing bodyguard and being very, and like, who is this Janine person? Her mom came out, I hugged her mom. The boys were running around like nothing was going wrong. And I was so glad I just had to see them. Like, I wanted to be near some part of Danny. And I asked the mom, like, how did you find out? She said, we're in Miami. Wendy called from the police station. We drove all night. And she seemed appropriately, like, upset. Then her dad, who I've met half a dozen times, Coral Springs, up here, he gave me this look, and I don't know what my facial reaction was to it, but I'm almost positive it was one of suspicion and anger, because he can't even look me in the face today. And it was awkward, and it never had been before. That really bothered me.
Is it common for him to look you in the face? I mean, some people just don't do it.
No, I'm not like an Asperger's kid. No, he was, yeah, absolutely. At least when someone's talking generally, you're listening. Like, it was odd.
He recognized you. There
of
wasn't a
course,
question
he's
of
like,
that.
TJ, hey. Yeah.
But he would not look you in the eye.
He started off fine. And then when we locked eyes, it was like something transpired that didn't sit well with either one of us, I guess. And then today he would not even look at me. I found that to be very unsettling.
And this would be Wendy's father?
Yes.
Harvey?
Mm-hmm. Harvey. Charlie was supposed to come up, her younger brother, but he didn't. That was also strange because she was positive he was coming and then he wasn't.
Very strange.
I drove then to his house, to Danny's house, and sat outside and prayed.
From Wendy's?
From Wendy's.
And this was yesterday?
This was yesterday.
Okay.
and just sat there and prayed and said, from here, nothing looks different. It looks like he'll be home any moment. And then went to church and prayed for an hour, ran into my priest, talked to him for another hour, and I haven't slept since. So I didn't know where he had been shot until this morning. That was extremely hard to hear. And even if they had just broken up and things were good, like, I would still be over helping to comfort her yesterday, you know? That's a big deal, especially with a social work background. I'm like, Janine, according to her husband, I guess, he wasn't there, but Janine was with Wendy when she found him. Janine's like, I went to the police station with her. But it felt I was like, is she an attorney? Is she representing her? It felt very guarded. Very, very guarded. Like you like her personal bodyguard now. And almost like guarded with the children around me. And I'm like, that's really weird. You know, again, Wendy's mom seemed fine. Anyone else, I can't say.
You don't suspect anything suspicious about her mom?
Not so much, no.
But her dad, you're feeling some vibes because of him not wanting to look you in the eye yesterday. And
then today not wanting to look me at all. No.
Did he acknowledge you at all today?
No, he didn't. Not at all.
Okay, so there's confusion about Jane and Janine. Was it Janine or was it Jane? I don't know, but who's Jane? We all know who Jane is, right? We all heard the story, and we all saw the interview with Wendy and Jane McPherson, a social work PhD student of Jeff Lacasse. Okay, so she knew Jeff Lacasse better than anybody, right? And Wendy was obviously telling Jane McPherson, and let's take a quick look at Jane, okay? Hold on. Jane McPherson was very good friends with Wendy, and was, you know, Wendy was in her ear about how terrible Dan Markel was. But what the weird twist here is that when this murder happened, Jane came there to be this confidant and to comfort her, right? We all saw the interview. I put out a whole video on this interview with Wendy and the part where Jane shows up. And the behavior between Jane and Wendy is extremely odd. It is really odd. It is almost like, it kind of gives off like they're in a relationship in some way. Like there's some sort of, at least on Jane's side, like it seems as if she's like very smothering and admires Wendy. But the worst thing is that when she gets to the police station to be with Wendy, she says to her, I told you not to marry him, referring to Dan Markel. And then at one point, they're both on their phones, right? And nobody had told Wendy that he was in his car when he got shot. And there's a part in this interview where they're just kind of like hanging out with each other and looking down at their phones. And Wendy looks down at her phone and must have pulled up a news clip or an article with the printed picture of the front of the house at Truscott. Garage doors open, the back of the car is there, and she immediately goes, oh, there's his car. So how did you know? You wouldn't have known that he was shot while he was sitting in his car unless you were in on it, right? Right. And then the next part really blows my mind because Jeff Lacasse is eventually brought up, implying, could he do something like this? But Wendy says to Jane, who could have done this? Right? Who could have done this? And Jane, mentions Jeff. Now, isn't that odd? Because Jane and Jeff were good friends. Jane and Jeff were in the same circles. She was a student at the School of Social Work at FSU. So how involved was Jane in what was going on between Jeff and Wendy? It almost feels so like Jane's right there with the answer that needs to come out in that moment. You need to look at Jeff. Well, it sounds to me like this is something that was discussed already between Wendy and Jane. They talk in that manner. That is exactly what I'm seeing there. It is so odd. And then the giggling and the cuddling up to each other, it is just very disturbing. So now back to Tamara Demco's interview. She's saying Janine with confidence. She keeps saying it's Janine, it's Janine. And Janine was married, so maybe Janine and her husband went over to Wendy's house on the 19th, but it wouldn't surprise me if Jane was there either, because it seems like Jane's all up in her, So what do you guys think? Do you think it was Janine or Jane that Tamara Demco's talking about? Because for her Janine is not exactly a very common name either. But it does start with a J, just like Jane. So let me know what you guys think and comment below on that one. So this is Jared Ross. Okay, Jared Ross is a good guy. He's an attorney who was friends with Danny Markel. He also knew the Adelson family. He knew Charlie Adelson as a high school classmate. He was acquainted with Wendy as well back in the early years. Okay, so Jared had co-managed Justice for Dan Inc., advocating for prosecutions in the case. He made public statements in September 2024 after Wendy's brother Charlie was convicted, and as Donna awaited trial, Jared Ross criticized delay tactics and conflicts of interest that postponed justice, saying it, quote, once again delayed justice for Dan Markel and his family and his loved ones. Then in September 2025, following Donna Adelson's conviction, he spoke on camera about what might come next. And he noted pointedly that, quote, we did hear a lot about Wendy in Donna's case. The same way in Charlie's case, we heard a lot about Donna, and there are breadcrumbs being left behind here. So he suggested that Wendi Adelson could be the next person tried, implying evidence is building towards her. Jared stated that each new conviction in a conspiracy brought just a little bit more justice and relief, even as the mission would not be completed until everyone responsible is held accountable. Now, let me tell you this, that he once dated Wendi Adelson for a very short time. Now, he said it was very, very casual. It was back like in the olden days when they were much younger. They were like, I think late teens, maybe early teens, went to the movies together and things like that, hung out with Charlie. But as time went on, they kind of like went their separate ways, and Charlie became his self-centered Ferrari driving self. But Jared Ross isn't just an advocate and attorney today. He used to actually be friends with both of them. Let me drop these two things on you here about Wendy and her friends, okay? The day of the murder, in Wendy's interview, she revealed two things. One, that she had recently given clothes that the boys had grown out of to friends, okay? Again, another thing that supports I'm packing and I'm cleaning house, spring cleaning, right? She's about ready to be able to go back to Miami with her kids. So it makes sense that she would do some spring cleaning, box up things, get rid of things, throw things out, but also to give all the old clothes that the boys don't fit anymore to her friends. But to me, the biggest one is the keys. She went and made keys and gave them to her friends before this murder, recently. Why? Because you knew that you'd be stuck at a police station and a murder was about to happen, and you were going to need your friends to be able to have access to your home, to be able to pick up your children in case of an emergency, right? Take a listen to this.
No, I just thought I would find the bourbon one,
Yeah.
but I must have put it in the bag.
Just looking at the dates.
I eat a lot. I lost the key to my house, so I went to buy many spare keys to give to friends around town so I don't get locked out of my house again.
Okay.
So
To give to friends around town? I don't know anyone that has ever done that. I have never gone down to Lowe's or Home Depot and made copies, multiple copies of keys, and then drove around town to give my friends copies of keys. Okay, I've left one under a rock. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that, because then if my neighbors are watching. Just kidding. No, people leave keys like under a rock, under a mat, and maybe one friend or maybe a neighbor, right? Why didn't you make a key for Mr. Geiger, who lives next door, your neighbor there? No, you made multiple keys and then went for a drive and drop off those keys to all your friends. Guys, that is so damning. I'm just blown away by that. I really am. I just can't believe. Are they over there putting this all together? Are they putting this together? I gotta hope they are, right? I gotta hope they are. I'm realizing now that I'm gonna have to do a part 2 on this one because there's no way I can get to all the friends on this video today. But that is what I have so far. But I've got many more names here that were on the email. There's a Joe Davis. Let's see. We've got the Greenbergs. We've got the realtor, Lynn. She's a friend of hers. I did a video on Sarah Youssef already, but we could talk about her again. Anyway, this was fun, right? Let me know what you think below in the comment box. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and share to the channel. Also, underneath each video, you can now see a Moms for Justice official merchandise store. There are mugs, water bottles, really cool t-shirts, and hoodies, and you can get those. We also have the super thanks and the super chat buttons for the live streams if you want to support the channel. And yeah, I guess we're going to have to come back and do a part 2. I also have a video on Charlie coming your way also, so hang in there. Just so you all know, I'm also going to be covering the Corey Richins case, Courtney Clenny, and the Suzanne Morphew case. So stay tuned for those. I'll see you later. Bye.